Welcome to the Fantasy Film Room presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL. For today's Film Room, we have two guys that we are, again, against consensus on as we head into the busiest weekend of drafting this year. And these are two guys that we're worried, hey, we might be wrong about being a little behind consensus on these players. And Boone, I love your pick here. I mean, there's nobody that would scare me. Like, I've been in on this guy for basically every year of his career, and it took a minute for it to turn out to be a correct answer, but it's been a correct answer for quite some time. And there's nobody I would be more scared of fading than the player you're about to talk about here.
And that is Derrick Henry. And I feel like this would not be the first time that Derrick Henry would have burned me if it works out that way. Just continues to defy every age curve, continues to produce. The guy cannot be stopped. But at some point, it has to end, right? At some point, a bigger back.
If you keep saying it every year, you'll be right one year. If you keep doing it,
I know, and I'm
not
that far off. Like, I have him at RB7. I think right now he's being, ECR, and I think he's being drafted at RB5. But in my overall rankings,
where do you have him ranked? I was sorry.
I was as a second round pick, and I think for the most part, ADP wise, he goes in the first round in a lot of drafts. And I know in one of my home leagues for the longest time, I would always pass on him. And we had the same manager every year that would just take him, click, and would have success with him every year. And it became like a running joke. So maybe that will be the case again this time around. The age thing has to. Like, this guy can't be 40. Like, he's not Tom Brady at 45 doing this. Like, there's just no way. It has to happen at some point. But the thing that does scare me, and I brought this up before, is the idea that a couple of years ago in 2023, Gus Edwards was Gus Edwards, and he still had 13 touchdowns in this offense. So there's such a high floor with Henry because barring injury, he's going to fall into double-digit touchdowns. He's going to be a fine pick for you, even if he doesn't hit that like ceiling outcome again. Now, the thing that I want to bring up though here is the other guy in that backfield. And I'm not talking about Justice Hill. I'm talking about Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell is such an intriguing piece for the Ravens this year because if people remember a couple of years ago, Keaton Mitchell was just shot out of a cannon. Like, there are a few players that enter the NFL that look like they're moving at a different speed than everyone else out there. Keaton Mitchell was one of them, and he was breaking big runs. He's a guy that constantly, you're not supposed to go to the outside. It doesn't matter for him. He could take it to the outside, just beat everyone there and break it for a big run. He also just has like really good movement for a guy that's moving that fast, pretty good vision, and he's able to just kind of find his way along without losing like a lot of his speed and his movements. Very, very impressive. Now, he had an injury. He's a smaller guy, right? 5'8", 190. He did have an injury that year and then basically had a lost season. But you look back before that, I mean, he was averaging over 8 yards per carry, like was just an incredible addition, not as a guy that's going to be the lead back, but a guy that could be the ultimate change of pace. And you think about where Henry's at in his career, and it's not that you want to take Derrick Henry off the field, but what if you could work in this younger back and get him out there breaking these long runs, totally throwing something different at the defense? I think the Ravens are going to do that this season. And in the first week of the preseason, he comes out 9 carries for 68 yards and a score. He's back. Last year, he came back at the very end of the year, was not the same guy. Now he's healthy. He is back to being the same player, or very close to the same player. He offers too much juice to hold him back. So I think, like I said, he's a nice complement to a 31-year-old Derrick Henry. I think it would be a great matchup to put those guys together and have that combination out of the backfield for the Ravens. And I think that is one way where maybe we could take a little bit away from Henry because we have another back that is so explosive and can produce that way in the backfield. But again, maybe they'll just both hit because Henry seems inevitable. He's just an undeniable force.
Yeah, he is inevitable, undeniable force. He's like Teflon, just nothing bothers him. He just keeps on moving. He's unbreakable. I do think that there's a chance that, Keaton Mitchell's more involved, but you mentioned that Gus Edwards kind of stuff from the Ravens offense, and that's what makes me feel really good about Henry, that even if he does decline and he's like a small miss as a first-round pick, like he really is still going to be a good fantasy back because he can do what people were worried that he was going to do last year, which is he's probably going to have decline from a rushing efficiency perspective, but he'll probably still score double-digit touchdowns, which I think there's actually a chance maybe that happens this year. He declines a little bit efficiency-wise, and then he still scores double-digit touchdowns because this is the best offense in the NFL. Maybe it's not the best offense in the NFL anymore if Derrick Henry declines, but again, I really feel like some players, I'm just going to have to see it to believe it, and I do feel like Boone, Derrick Henry is one of those players. Again, you have a pick from one of the best offenses in the NFL. I have a pick from one of the best offenses in the NFL, which is your Buffalo Bills. Keon Coleman. I'm like, when we get to the 50s at the wide receiver ranking, it's like, who cares if you're a few spots off? I have him at 57. His consensus ranking is 50. In best ball drafts, I actually took a little bit of Keon Coleman because I do think there will be spike weeks. But I am afraid that I could get this one wrong, and I'm just like completely ignoring. And honestly, the whole industry is completely ignoring like a second-year player attached to Josh Allen. I think people know my issues with Coleman's game, which is dating back to his prospect profile. He was a poor performer, sub 35th percentile among prospects in success rate versus man and press coverage. He's just not a separator. And as a rookie. So okay, he's not a separator. Those like guys who are non-separators as college players, they need to move into the slot. All the guys that have hit in that category, they've moved into the slot. Keon Coleman last year basically only plays X receiver, 3rd percentile success rate versus man, rookie year, 8th percentile success rate versus press. But weirdly, to make it a film take here, I actually kind of think Josh Palmer could be the reason that Keon Coleman ends up banging me here as this wide receiver 57 ranking. Because Palmer had not a special success rate versus press, but 59th percentile success rate versus press, Boone. So if Palmer can go out and play as not every snap X receiver, but mostly outside, mostly on the X, and allows Coleman to move around, that's how, like, I'm ranking him right now as if his usage will be exactly the same as it was last year. If it's not, I'm going to adjust quickly from a prior's perspective and think like, all right, he actually can take a step forward. Right now, I just don't see it. In as long as put that mug down. As long as we're in this role with him, put that mug down. Bill's mug on the. I mean, for God's sakes, some people listen to the podcast. I don't even know what you're doing, Boone. So stop. But if Keon Coleman moves around a little bit more, I think he can be more productive. But if he just stays at the X, he's just going to be a volatile weekly producer, Boone.
I mean, the Bills mug, the Bills helmet behind me, the Bills love. What did you say to me when I messaged you on Reddit and I said the Tucker Kraft stuff? You said, "How dare you, sir?" I believe that. I feel like that's my response here.
Yeah.
How dare you, sir, end this episode this way? You know how I feel. I think you made some very good points there. Obviously, whenever you have reservations about a receiver, I'm going to take notice and I'm going to bake that into my outlook for them. I think despite everything you said, Coleman surprised me last year. Like going into last season, I didn't think he was going to be able to produce much initially. And yet he came out and he posted at least 50 yards and or a touchdown in 4 of those first 5 outings. And that was despite all like the inconsistency, despite all the things you're saying about, him having trouble. He needs to figure out how to win in the pros. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty hopeful that he's able to do that now because as we saw last year, he was coming on. Like before that injury happened, 4 for 125, a 5 for 70, and a touchdown. And if we take just the 5 games before he got hurt last year, because when he came back after that, wasn't the same player. I think the injury totally derailed the season, and that was unfortunate. But if we look at it, so the 5 games before he got hurt, those were only his 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th NFL appearances. He averaged 64 yards per game over those contests. That's a 1,000-yard pace. And I'm not here to tell you that he's going to become like an elite player. I'm just saying where he's going in drafts, I think you're getting a guy who could potentially be in that range of other receivers that we really like. I think maybe by the end of the season, we look at Coleman as somebody that's a wide receiver 3 for fantasy, has some of those wide receiver 2 spiked weeks, can score a bunch of touchdowns. The touchdowns are his path towards like really unlocking his fantasy ceiling. So even if he doesn't get those, I think we're looking at a guy that has a good chance to be the top receiver on a team that desperately needs it when their previous top receiver, who doesn't have the highest ceiling in Khalil Shakir is entering the season with a high ankle sprain. We don't know if he's going to be out there week 1. We don't know if he's going to be healthy early in the year. High ankle sprains can be a tough thing to get over. So I think there's just a lot of paths here where he could potentially crush it. and not be Nico Collins, but come out and be a very viable fantasy player that you're getting in the late rounds.